The night Tunde Balewa threw his wife out of his mansion. It was raining so hard that even the security guards avoided looking her in the eye. Amara stood barefoot on the wet marble steps, one hand gripping her small handbag, the other still shaking from the force with which he had pulled her wedding ring off her finger and thrown it into the flower bed. Behind him, crystal lights glowed inside the house she had once dreamed of building into a home. Laughter from his guests still floated through the open doors. Tunde had not just sent her away. He had humiliated her in front of business partners, socialites, photographers, and the very woman he was planning to replace her with. And as the rain soaked through her dress, Amara clutched the one envelope Tunde never bothered to ask about. Inside it was a secret powerful enough to erase everything he thought he owned. Tunde believed he was finally free of the woman who had walked with him through hunger. What he did not know was that the empire he was using to destroy her had never truly become his. And by morning, the first crack would appear. If you think this is just another story about a rich man cheating on his wife, stay with me, because what Amara carried in that envelope would turn his pride into the kind of lesson people whisper about for years. 3 years earlier, nobody would have believed Tunde Balewa would one day live in a mansion with imported chandeliers, 3 black SUVs, and a dining table longer than the room Amara grew up in. Back then, he was just an ambitious young man with polished shoes, a tired briefcase, and the kind of confidence people admire when it succeeds and mock when it fails. Amara first met him outside a commercial bank in Lagos. She had gone there to deliver financial records for the school where she worked part-time, and Tunde was arguing with a security man who refused to let him inside because the branch manager had left for the day. "Please," Tunde said, forcing a smile. "Tell him vision should count as appointment." The security man laughed. "Vision does not sign visitor slips, my brother." Amara tried not to smile, but she did. Tunde turned and noticed her. "You're laughing at my suffering," he said. "I'm laughing at your confidence," she replied. "That is even worse. Confidence is all I have left." She should have walked away. Instead, she asked, "What do you need the manager for?" "I run a cocoa transport business," he said. "Or at least I'm trying to. My trucks break down, my clients delay payment, and everybody says come back tomorrow. One day they'll be begging me for meetings." Amara tilted her head. "That sounds either inspiring or dangerous." "It is both," he said. "What about you?" "I work with numbers." "So you are the kind of woman who can tell when a man is lying?" "Usually." "Then let me save time. I'm not rich, I'm not stable, but I'm serious." She laughed then, a full laugh this time, and for reasons he would never fully understand, Tunde decided in that exact second that he wanted to keep hearing that sound for the rest of his life. Amara was not dazzled by promises. She was the daughter of a disciplined school principal and a woman who ran a small produce business with terrifying accuracy. She had grown up hearing that hunger could be endured, but foolishness should never be married. So when Tunde began showing up wherever her life passed, at the roadside tea stand near the school, outside the bookkeeping class she taught in the evenings, at church events where he suddenly became very prayerful, she did not fall easily. He kept trying anyway. One evening, after walking her home under an orange sunset, he stopped near her father's gate and said, "Amara, I don't have the kind of life your parents want for you yet. But I have a clear mind, hard-working hands, and a future too stubborn to fail." "That is a very dramatic sentence," she said. "I practiced it." "I can tell." He smiled. "Then let me give you the unpracticed version." I feel seen when I'm with you. Nobody else looks at me like I'm becoming something. They look at me like I'm already late. But you look at me like there is still time." Amara's face softened. "There is time, Tunde. But time does not save people by itself. What saves them? Character, discipline, humility." He held her gaze. "Then stay close enough to slap me if I lose any of them." She should have noticed the danger in how casually he said it. Instead, she smiled. "I am not violent. We'll see." Amara's father did not share her amusement when Tunde eventually came to ask for permission to marry her. "This boy has ambition," her father said after Tunde left. "That is good," Amara answered. "It is not enough." Her mother, more gentle but equally worried, added, "A hungry man can sound very loving. The real test comes when hunger leaves." Amara heard the warning. She simply believed love, wisdom, and effort could overcome anything. She saw how Tunde worked. She saw the shame in his eyes when he borrowed money. She saw how he hated being small in a city that respected loud success more than quiet integrity. Most of all, she believed that if she stood by him while he struggled, he would never forget. The wedding was small, sincere, and tense in all the places nobody mentions in photographs. Her parents attended, but they did not glow. Tunde noticed, and though he smiled through the ceremony, something sharp tucked itself inside him that day. It was not just that he wanted success. He wanted the kind of success that would force every doubter to clap. The first 2 years of marriage were held together by prayer, jokes, unpaid bills, and Amara's impossible endurance. She taught accounting lessons in the morning, worked part-time at a logistics office in the afternoon, and sold packaged spices online at night. Tunde called her his entire ministry. "You are not a wife," he would say while watching her sort receipts at midnight. "You are a headquarters." "And you," she would reply, "are still not helping me find where we kept the onions." "Madam, when I become rich, onions will be managed by professionals." "That is why I must supervise your future," she said. They laughed often in those days. But laughter does not cancel pressure. Tunde's business kept sinking and rising like a boat that could not decide whether it wanted to survive. A client vanished with payment. One truck engine died on the expressway. A warehouse contract collapsed. Every time Tunde thought he had found his breakthrough, something grabbed his ankle and dragged him back. Then came the month everything nearly ended. A container of premium cocoa bound for export spoiled after a storage delay caused by one of Tunde's desperate cost-cutting decisions. The buyer threatened legal action. His lenders called non-stop. 2 truck drivers quit. One partner disappeared. Tunde sat in the dark of their tiny sitting room one night, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. "I am finished," he said. Amara came from the kitchen and sat beside him. "No. This is not one of your motivational evenings. This is real." "I know it's real." "You don't understand. If I can't cover this gap, they will take everything." "What is everything?" "My trucks, my office, my name." She looked at him for a long moment. "A name can be rebuilt." He laughed bitterly. "Easy for holy people to say." She said nothing then, but that night, while Tunde finally slept from exhaustion, Amara opened the wooden box beneath their bed and took out the papers she had sworn to protect. They were the title documents to 12 acres of cocoa land in her late father's village. It was the only major inheritance in her name, the land her father once told her never to surrender to a reckless man. The next morning, she traveled alone. At the bank, the senior credit officer studied her quietly. "You want to guarantee your husband's failing company with inherited land?" "I want to save our future." "You understand the risk?" "Yes." He folded his hands. "Madam, forgive me, but women who come here like this are usually carrying a man's dream more carefully than he carries his own." Amara sat straighter. "Can the business be saved or not?" "It can," he said, "but not with sentiment. We would need restructuring, new oversight, and legal protection for the guarantor." "What kind of protection?" "If the company defaults after recovery, the guarantor can assume controlling rights over certain assets and voting powers until obligations are cleared. It prevents a situation where someone uses your sacrifice, becomes successful, and behaves like memory is a disease." Amara looked at him sharply. "I've seen many things," the banker said. She signed. When Tunde asked 3 days later how the crisis had suddenly been contained, Amara did what loving women too often do when they mistake silence for peace. She lied. "I called in help," she said. "From who?" "Someone who believes in your business." He grabbed her shoulders. "Amara, I swear to you, I will never forget this." For a moment she almost told him, almost placed the full truth in his hands. But his eyes were shining with wounded pride and relief, and she could already hear his protest if he learned she had tied her father's land to his survival. So she buried the truth beneath love and said, "Then don't." He did not. The recovery worked. The restructured loan gave Tunde enough breathing room to rebuild operations properly. Amara quietly began tightening his books at home after work. She introduced simple accountability systems. She forced him to track every payment. She even wrote some of the proposal language he later used to approach bigger buyers. Within a year, Tunde's small transport business had evolved into a growing cocoa logistics and export company. Within 2, he was wearing custom suits, attending trade conferences, and shaking hands with men who used to ignore him. Success arrived like a drumline. Loud, public, addictive. And with it came the first signs that Amara's parents had seen something she had mistaken for ambition. At first, it was small things. He stopped laughing when she reminded him to control unnecessary spending. He began correcting the way she dressed for events. "Maybe don't wear that one tonight," he said once. "The investors' wives will be there." Amara looked down at her dress. "What is wrong with it?" "Nothing is wrong with it. It just looks simple." "I am simple." "Exactly," he said, then immediately pretended it had come out wrong. But it had not. Soon he was staying out later, speaking more sharply, and surrounding himself with people who praised his rise while quietly feeding his ego. One of them was Vanessa Cole, a glossy socialite with a perfect smile, polished accent, and the kind of cold intelligence that always knows where money is before love does. She met Tunde at an export gala and decided very quickly that his insecurity could be shaped into attention. "You have the posture of a man who is underestimated," she told him over champagne. Tunde smiled. "And what does that tell you?" "That you'll spend a lot of money proving people wrong." He laughed. "You understand success?" "No," Vanessa said, eyes glittering. "I understand wounded men." By the time Amara realized Vanessa was no longer a passing acquaintance, the emotional climate of her marriage had already changed. Tunde no longer came home to rest. He came home to compare. Compare the softness of Vanessa's flattery with Amara's inconvenient honesty. Compare the glamour of public life with the woman who knew how poor he once was. Compare admiration purchased by money with loyalty proven by sacrifice. And because pride is a terrible storyteller, it began rewriting his history for him. One night, Amara found him staring at himself in the mirror, adjusting a tuxedo he had spent far too much money on. "You look worried," she said. He kept smoothing the lapel. Big men carry pressure. Real big men also carry discipline. He turned. "Why do you always sound like correction?" "Because lately that's all you leave me to do." He exhaled sharply. "Maybe that's the problem." "What is the problem?" "You don't know how to move with where I am now." Amara blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means every time I want to enjoy the life I worked for, you drag me back into survival language." "Survival language built this house." His jaw tightened. "Exactly. You keep reminding me." The next week, on the night of his lavish birthday celebration, the storm finally broke. The mansion overflowed with guests, music, perfume, camera flashes, and expensive emptiness. Vanessa moved through the party like a woman already living there. Amara tried to ignore it until she saw Vanessa place a hand on Tunde's chest in front of everyone. Slow and familiar, and he did not remove it. Amara waited until they were alone near the upstairs landing. "Tell me the truth," she said. Tunde's eyes were hard. "Not tonight." "Then when? After she starts choosing curtains?" "Lower your voice." "You lower your disgrace." He stepped closer. "You are embarrassing me." "Embarrassing you?" Amara whispered in disbelief. "After everything?" He gave a humorless laugh. "Everything. You always speak like suffering is your personality." "Suffering? Tunde, I carried your business on my back." "And that is exactly the point," he snapped. "You never let me forget where I came from." Amara stared at him. "I was there. I was there when nobody else was. And I'm tired of being looked at by someone who remembers that version of me." "What version? The man I loved?" "The man who had nothing," he hissed. "Look around you, Amara. You do not fit this life anymore." She actually stepped back, as if struck. In the silence that followed, the music downstairs sounded vulgar. Then Vanessa appeared at the end of the hallway, not close enough to interrupt, but close enough to witness. That was when Tunde committed the kind of cruelty men spend the rest of their lives wishing they could swallow back. "If you cannot adapt," he said flatly, "then leave." Amara's voice trembled. "This is my home." He looked past her, toward the open staircase and the listening world below. Not anymore. By the time the guests realized something terrible had happened, Amara was already outside in the rain. She called only one person. Kelechi Obi had loved Amara once, long before she chose Tunde. Unlike men who wear rejection like an insult, Kelechi had accepted her decision and built a life anyway. He now ran an agricultural finance firm that supported regional cooperatives and rural women-led supply chains. He answered on the second ring. "Amara?" There was a pause, then one broken sentence. "He threw me out." "I'm coming." He arrived with no questions and no judgment, only a dry shawl, a quiet face, and the kind of care that never announces itself. He took her to his mother's guest house, where Auntie Neka fed her hot soup and said,
First eat, then cry. No woman should discuss betrayal on an empty stomach. For days, Amara moved through silence like a person relearning gravity. Shame tried to sit on her chest, but shame, when examined honestly, often belongs elsewhere. Kelechi never pushed. He simply said, "When you're ready, I know people who need your mind more than your memories." At first, she thought he was being kind. Then he brought her to a women-run cocoa cooperative outside Ibadan. Hundreds of small-scale farmers, widows, mothers, daughters, all producing quality beans but losing money to middlemen, weak systems, and exploitative contracts. Their books were chaos. Their supply chain leaked cash. Their quality control was inconsistent. Their potential was enormous. The cooperative chairwoman, Mama Sade, studied Amara and asked, "Can you bring order without bringing arrogance?" Amara surprised herself by answering, "I know what it means to build something and not be respected inside it." Mama Sade smiled. "Good. Then you may stay."
What began as temporary consulting became purpose. Amara rebuilt their accounting systems, negotiated better warehouse terms, introduced digital tracking, and trained field officers to grade produce properly. She helped them secure fair trade certification and taught them how to stop apologizing for asking to be paid correctly. The work was exhausting, practical, and deeply healing. Unlike the mansion, this place did not ask her to become smaller in order to be useful. Months passed. Then a year. Then 2. Amara was no longer merely helping the cooperative. She was leading expansion. Buyers respected her. Farmers trusted her. Export partners listened when she spoke. She walked through warehouses and village meetings with the quiet authority of someone whose pain had finally been converted into precision. Meanwhile, Tunde's empire was rotting from the inside. Without Amara's discipline, the business developed the shiny disease of men who mistake revenue for intelligence. He overpaid for appearances, underpaid for compliance, delayed farmers' settlements, and used company funds to keep Vanessa impressed. Reports became messy. Inventory mismatched invoices. 2 senior staff resigned. One buyer complained about declining quality. Tunde answered every warning with the same arrogance that ruins people in expensive clothes. "Handle it," he would say. But systems do not fear expensive shoes. Vanessa feared only discomfort. The day she learned Tunde was facing bank pressure, her voice changed before her body did. "What exactly do you mean by temporary cash flow issue?" she asked. "It's normal business pressure." "Normal for who?" "Vanessa, relax." "I do relax. Around stable men." Tunde rubbed his forehead. "I said I'm fixing it." She leaned back. "Please do. I did not attach myself to panic." The collapse accelerated when Tunde pursued the biggest deal of his career, an international supply agreement tied to a premium ethical sourcing network. If he secured it, he could recover everything. If he lost it, the market would smell weakness. What Tunde did not know, because he had never cared enough to learn where real structure lived, was that the sourcing network's strongest regional partner was the very cooperative Amara now led. The first sign came in a bank meeting. The senior legal officer slid a file across the polished table. "Mr. Balewa, due to repeated covenant breaches and exposure concerns, the bank is moving toward enforcement options." Tunde forced a smile. "We can restructure." "We may consider that under one condition." "What condition?" The officer opened the file. "Primary guarantor consent and asset control review. Tunde frowned. Primary guarantor. The officer looked up. Your wife. Tunde's skin went cold. My wife? Your spouse at the time of restructuring, the officer corrected. Mrs. Amara Balewa signed the emergency recovery guarantee using inherited agricultural land and accepted contingent controlling rights in the event of default. For a moment, he genuinely could not breathe. What are you saying? I'm saying your company survived because she saved it. I'm also saying the protections attached to that rescue have now become active. That's impossible. The legal officer turned the papers toward him. You signed acknowledgement pages. Perhaps you did not read them. Pride has a special way of humiliating people. It lets them build a throne out of what they never bothered to understand. Tunde left the bank half blind with shock. He called Amara immediately. The number rang out. He called again and again. Nothing. That night he confronted the past for the first time without excuses. He remembered the week the company had been dying. He remembered her saying she had found help. He remembered promising he would never forget. And then, like a movie whose sound returns after years, he heard all the moments he had ignored. Her warnings about discipline, her insistence on proper books, her calm when others panicked. The unbearable truth that the woman he threw away had not merely supported his success, she had legally anchored it. Vanessa left 3 weeks later, not with dramatic shouting. Worse, with efficiency. She packed jewelry he had bought, avoided his eyes, and said, "This relationship has become heavy." Heavy? Tunde asked. That's all? You were fun when you were rising, she said. Now you are educational. He laughed bitterly. At least you're honest. I'm consistent, she corrected. There's a difference. When she was gone, the mansion sounded like a hotel after checkout. Tunde tried to reach Amara through email, mutual contacts, even a handwritten letter. No answer. Then came the invitation that finished him. A due diligence roundtable had been scheduled between export financiers, ethical sourcing partners, and short-listed supply firms. Tunde needed this meeting. He arrived early in a tailored suit he could no longer comfortably afford, carrying confidence like a man holding together cracked glass. The conference room doors opened. Amara walked in. Not as someone's wife, not as somebody's pity, not even as his judge. She walked in as chair of the Regional Cocoa Integrity Cooperative. Every person at that table stood to greet her. Tunde remained frozen. She wore a deep green suit, simple gold earrings, and the expression of a woman who had fought too hard for peace to perform anger for free. One investor smiled. Miss Okoye, thank you for joining us. Tunde stared. Okoye. She had gone back to her maiden name. Amara took her seat, opened her folder, and finally looked at him. Good morning, Mr. Balewa. He swallowed. Amara. Her eyes did not move. For today's purposes, Miss Okoye is fine. Nobody in the room missed the tension. But serious business people are often polite enough to let humiliation reveal itself slowly. The lead facilitator began. We are here to review sourcing integrity, operational stability, and financing viability. Mr. Balewa's company is seeking inclusion in the premium export network. Miss Okoye's cooperative is a principal upstream supplier and oversight partner. Tunde tried to gather himself. Of course, we're ready. Amara turned a page. Are you? It was not loud, it was not emotional, it was worse. It was clean. The review started with procurement records, then quality deviations, then delayed farmer settlements, then discrepancies in storage reporting, then bank exposure. Each issue landed like measured thunder. One compliance officer asked, "Can you explain why farmer payments were delayed while executive hospitality costs increased?" Tunde cleared his throat. Cash flow timing. Amara spoke without raising her voice. Cash flow timing does not usually book private luxury expenses against operational accounts. Another reviewer added, "We also found attempts to bypass certified grading controls." Tunde shifted in his chair. "We were managing urgency." Amara looked directly at him then. "Urgency is not the same as integrity." The room fell still. Then the banker delivered the final blow. Given the active guarantor protections and current covenant breach status, controlling approval authority now requires Miss Okoye's consent. The words seemed to hang in the air forever. Tunde turned to her in disbelief. "You knew?" "Yes. And you said nothing?" Her face remained steady. "I said many things. You only listened when my silence suited you." His voice cracked. "Amara, please." One investor leaned back slowly, understanding now that the business story in front of him was bigger than spreadsheets. Amara closed the folder. "Let me be clear. I am not here to destroy Mr. Balewa. Facts have done that work without my help. I am here to protect farmers, contracts, and standards. If this company is to survive in any form, it will do so through transparency, repayment, and humility. Not through charm, not through image, and certainly not through the sacrifice of people he assumes will stay silent." Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then the facilitator asked the only question left. "Ms. Okoye, will the cooperative support continuation under reform?" Amara answered carefully. "Support is possible. Blind trust is not. Any future participation would require full forensic review, outstanding farmer payments settled first, external oversight, and removal of discretionary misuse from management control." Tunde understood what that meant. Survival, maybe. But not on his terms. Not with his old arrogance. Not with his illusion of ownership. For the first time in many years, the room was not bending around him. When the meeting ended, most people filed out with the quiet intensity of professionals who had just watched a private war become a governance lesson. Tunde stayed behind. "Please," he said. Amara paused at the door. "I know I don't deserve kindness." "You're right. I was a fool." "Yes." He let out a broken laugh. "You don't soften anything anymore." "I softened too much before." He lowered his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me what you did for me?" "Because I loved you," she said. "And because I thought protecting your dignity would protect our marriage. I was wrong." Tunde's shoulders sagged. "I thought success would make me bigger." It revealed what was already unresolved. Tears burned behind his eyes. "Can you ever forgive me?" Amara's expression changed then. Not into romance, not into revenge, but into something much rarer. Clarity. "I forgave you before this meeting began," she said. "Forgiveness is why I did not come here to humiliate you. But forgiveness is not restoration. You do not get access to me because you finally understand what you lost." He closed his eyes. "You threw me away," she continued softly. "Not because I failed you, because I remembered you too clearly. And when your new world required performance, my loyalty became inconvenient. I will never return to any life where love must compete with your ego." Then she left. That should have been the end. But life, when it is just, often chooses completion over spectacle. Months later, Tunde moved out of the mansion. 2 cars were sold. 1 property was seized. He entered supervised restructuring, began settling debts properly, and for the first time learned how small a man feels when nobody is left to clap for him. His mother visited his modest flat, looked around once and said, "So this is where pride rents rooms." He gave a sad smile. "Mama, please." "No, you will hear me. That woman stood by you when all you had was future tense, and you repaid her with weather." "I know. You know now." That is what foolish sons always say when wisdom finally arrives after the damage. He looked down. "I did love her." His mother's face softened, but not enough to rescue him from the truth. "Then may God teach you never again to confuse love with ownership." While Tunde was learning humility the hard way, Amara was finally living inside the kind of life that did not require self-erasure. The cooperative expanded into regional processing. International buyers trusted their quality. Young women in farming communities began calling her mentor. Her parents, both older and humbled by time, slowly found their way back into her life. Her father's apology came with tears he had once believed were weakness. "I thought money could protect you," he said. "I warned you about poverty, but I did not warn you enough about character." Amara squeezed his hand. "We all learned." Her mother cried openly. "You needed us, and shame made us late." "You are here now," Amara answered. And then there was Kelechi. He never rushed her healing, never treated her pain like an opening, never stood beside her hoping gratitude would turn into love. He simply remained consistent, the kind of man whose strength does not need witness to remain real. One evening after a cooperative gala, as soft music drifted through a garden lit with warm lanterns, Kelechi walked with her beneath rows of cocoa saplings planted as part of a youth program she had designed. "You look peaceful," he said. "That is new for me," Amara replied. "It suits you." She smiled. "You say very dangerous things in a calm voice." "I learned from watching you." They walked a little farther before he stopped near a young tree tied carefully to a support stake. "You know," he said, "the first time I saw you years ago, I admired your mind. Then life happened, and I admired your endurance. Now, I admire the woman you became after refusing to let pain decide your worth." Amara's breath slowed. Kelechi continued, "I am not asking because you need rescue. I am asking because I would be honored to build with someone who knows the cost of strength and still chooses tenderness." Then he knelt. Not in a ballroom, not before cameras, not to prove anything to anyone, just in quiet truth. "Amara Okoye," he said, voice steady. "If your heart is ready, will you marry me?" Her eyes filled instantly. For one terrifying second, he thought she might say no. Then she laughed through tears and placed both hands over her mouth. "Yes," she whispered. He smiled. "Madam, after all this speech, you will say it's stronger than that." She laughed harder. "Yes, I will marry you." When their wedding day came, it carried none of the anxious pretending that had surrounded her first marriage. Her father held her arm with gratitude instead of control. Her mother kept adjusting her veil and blaming dust for her tears. Auntie Neka declared the food an act of ministry. The cooperative women arrived, dressed like joy itself. And somewhere far outside the gate, a car paused briefly before moving on. Inside it sat Tunde. He had come only to leave a letter with security. It read, "Amara, I came not to interrupt your peace, only to honor it. You were the best part of my life, and I saw your value only after pride made me blind. Thank you for every sacrifice I never understood, and every warning I treated like an insult. I pray your new life gives you the kind of love I was too immature to protect. This is goodbye, with respect." When Amara finished reading it, she folded the page calmly and handed it to Kelechi. "Are you all right?" he asked. She looked around at the people laughing, the women dancing, the father she had forgiven, the future waiting without fear. "Yes," she said, "I am." And for the first time, the answer required no effort. At the reception, her father rose to speak. "I once believed wealth was safety," he said. "I have since learned that character is the first inheritance any marriage must protect. To my daughter, thank you for teaching us that dignity can survive betrayal. To my new son, thank you for honoring what another man was too proud to understand." The room applauded. Amara looked down, overwhelmed. Kelechi leaned toward her and whispered, "Don't cry too much. Your mother has been protecting that makeup like national treasure." She laughed. Later that night, after the music softened and the guests blurred into warmth, Amara stepped outside for air. The sky was clear. No storm, no exile, no locked doors. Only peace. Kelechi joined her. "Thinking?" he asked. "Yes." "Dangerous?" "Faithful," she said. He slipped his hand into hers. Amara looked out into the dark and remembered the night she stood in the rain believing her life had ended. She had lost a house, a marriage, and the illusion that sacrifice guarantees gratitude. But she had found something greater, herself, fully returned. Not bitter, not broken, not waiting for her worth to be recognized by the man who missed it. And somewhere across the city, Tunde Balewa was beginning a smaller, humbler life, with the one lesson he could never again afford to ignore. If a good woman helps build your future, do not mistake her loyalty for weakness. Because the hands that save an empire can also be the last hands that hold its true foundation. If this story moved you, don't leave quietly. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, at what point did Tunde lose Amara for good? The first lie, the public humiliation, or the moment success changed his heart? And if you believe character matters more than money in marriage, type "character first" in the comments. See you in the next story.